mic's taller than me, so. Oh, do you need it lower for you? I'll throw it at the end, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Good morning, and welcome to Live Oak. Please rise in body or spirit for our gathering hymn, number 407. We're gonna sit at the welcome table.
Good morning and welcome, beloved community. I'm Reverend Joanna. In this sacred space, we gather as one, celebrating the tapestry of our diversity, honoring the boundless love that unites us all. Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church is unambiguously, unapologetically progressive, and our doors swing wide to embrace all who seek a welcoming place where we celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community, where we know that every identity is a divine expression of humanity, where we commit to the work of dismantling systemic racism and other oppressions, striving for a world where equity, compassion, and justice are the cornerstones of our shared existence. May our worship today be a source of inspiration, a wellspring of courage, and a call to action. Welcome, dear friends, to this place of love, acceptance, and progress.
My name is Michael Enyar, and I want to give a special welcome to any visitors we have today, whether here in person or online. If you haven't already, I encourage you to stop by our visitors table in the narthex after the service and sign up for our weekly email. The newsletter will, you can meet, so we can meet with you and answer any questions you may have.
Okay. There we go. Go closer.
Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal faith. There are no doctrines you have to agree with in order to belong. Instead, we are held together by covenant, our promises to each other in this church and within our religious tradition. Please join me in these words from our historic faith. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We unite with UU churches around the world by lighting our flaming chalice, the symbol of our religion. Today, Eleanor and Mays will be lighting our chalice. Here and at home, we light it today with these words. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing. Humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time, we come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. This is an excerpt from...
Oh, not yet.
This reading is an excerpt from Unsystematic Liberal Theology, Eschatology by Dan Harper. Eschatology is that branch of theology that asks questions like, what will happen at the end of time? What will happen after death? What is our final destination? Religious liberals tend to avoid the questions associated with eschatology, and one of the ways we avoid these questions is by allowing science to provide answers. For example, we might say that what will happen at the end of time is governed by the second law of thermodynamics. However, such answers are not often satisfying to many religious liberals. The question as asked is usually not a question about physics or cosmology. It is a personal question related to the meaning, or lack thereof, of one's own existence. Some religious liberals have been strongly influenced by other religious traditions. For example, various Eastern religious traditions, and they may adopt the eschatologies of their favored tradition. Thus, for example, those who have a connection with Buddhism or Hinduism may believe that after death we are reborn into another body. Those with Buddhist inclinations might say that eventually we can hope for nirvana or nothingness when the cycle of rebirth comes to an end. Many religious liberals do not see any connection between our morality while we are alive and what happens to us after we are dead. Some religious liberals, however, might see some connection between our actions in this life and what happens to us after we die. If we don't behave well in this life, we will not achieve nirvana. If we don't behave well in life, there will be some limited period of punishment after death before our soul is reconciled to God. Thus ends our reading.
For the past 31 years, Live Oak has been a beacon of acceptance, love, and inclusivity in an area where our values often challenge the status quo. In a world where divisiveness and intolerance seem to grow stronger, we firmly believe in the transformative power of our faith and the positive impact that we are having in our area. We invite you to make a financial contribution to help sustain this church's vital work, knowing that every gift, large and small, is appreciated and carefully used in service to our mission. And if you would like to donate electronically, there is a card with a QR code in the seat back pockets. Every week we share what is given with an organization whose works reflect our own UU values. This month we are giving to Hill Country Community Ministries, and our member, Becky McPherson, will now tell us more.
Good morning. I'm also a Hill Country Community Minister volunteer, so it's kind of a good mix for me to come do this today. Hill Country's mission is to really help people who are going through hard times. That's basically what it is. And most of what they do is they provide, sorry, thanks, Wayne. How's that? Better? Thank you for your clue. They do most of that through donating food to people that need food. We do that here, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. That's one of the things we do and why we're one of their community partners. But last year, they served over 136,000 people, and they provided 1,300,000 pounds of food. So that's what's going through that. And it's 130 different zip codes that they provide to. They also provide vouchers for people to go to their thrift store and to purchase clothing. They also provide hygiene products. So in addition to food, we help them in other ways. And they also provide case management that helps connect people to different kinds of services that go beyond what they have. This has a little sweet spot, doesn't it? Don't move. Okay. One of the things we do here is we do Fresh Food for All, our Fresh Food Friday, which is the third Friday of the month. If you come in the morning, our parking lot's busy. We help provide, we are one of 10 locations where you take the food out to the community and provide it. Last year we averaged 100 families a month. So it is busy out in our parking lot, and we provided 17,750 pounds of food to people right here. You can come right here and do it. One of the other things we do is we actually have a place where we collect food in our narthex. And there are lots of different things they ask for that they don't purchase, they just use donations that come in. Some of those include shampoo, toothbrushes, toothpaste, canned tuna, shelf-stable milk, and for those of you that remember last holiday season, we also helped provide for their holiday packages with gravy and mashed potatoes. So it can all happen right out there as well. You can donate online if you are not attending our services, or online by going to our website, choosing donate, and there's a drop-down menu that helps you go just to the share the plate, and you can donate that way. But if you want to know more about Hill Country Ministries, there's a couple of us that can share stories. Thank you.
Let this time of offering be a reflection of our shared commitment to making a positive impact on the world, and a reminder that our Unitarian Universalist values guide us not only in our beliefs, but also in our actions. Thank you for your presence and your contributions to our ongoing journey of building the beloved community here and in our wider parish.
A story to share with you that is a classic Unitarian Universalist story about Hosea Ballou. It is part of the canon of stories that you'll hear over and over again because the truth in them is just so essential. So I want to tell you about Hosea Ballou. And Hosea Ballou lived about 200 years ago. He was the youngest of 9 children. And Hosea loved to play in the woods, and in the spring he liked to jump in puddles, and in the winter he liked to jump in the snowdrifts, and in the fall he liked to jump in, what would he jump in the fall? Leaves. But there was a special time of the year when there was mud. Mud, glorious, thick, luscious mud. And if there wasn't enough mud, that was okay because Hosea was an enterprising young man and would get buckets of water and go dump it in the mud and make more mud. And have you ever, think for a minute, think back. When you step in mud, how it oozes up between your toes. It's cold, and it sticks, and it feels so cool. Ooh, and you can mix it with water, and you can make a stew, and you can pretend to feed everybody with the mud. Oh, and the best. Who's done a mud pie? Anybody made a mud pie? Yes, it's glorious, isn't it? Mud pies are the best. Well, the thing is, Hosea's mom passed away when he was 2 years old, so his older siblings had to take care of the younger children. Well, one of his older sisters, she was in charge of the laundry. 200 years ago, they didn't have Whirlpool. There was no washing machine. She had to wash those clothes by hand in a bucket. And every time Hosea went outside and he got muddy and he came back in, his clothes were muddy, and then he got the other kids muddy. One of his other sisters was responsible for giving all the kids their baths. And have you ever stood in mud and then you had to scrub that mud off? Sometimes it doesn't come off real easy, right? But when he had the mud on him, he would also track it in the house, and then he would track it and get it on his siblings. And his sister was like, Hosea, you got to stop playing in the mud. I'm tired of trying to get everybody clean. And the sister that was doing the laundry was really getting upset. And she's like, Hosea, I love you, but you really need to stop doing this. And Hosea said, okay. And then he would go out and play in the mud because, it's just so glorious, right? Well, the girls went to Dad, and they said, Father, you've got to make Hosea stop playing in the mud. And Father said, Hosea, very sternly, you should not play in the mud. Why? Asked Hosea, because like other children, asking questions was a thing that he loved to do. Who here likes to ask questions? I do. Because, his father said, who was one of the preachers in the Baptist church the family went to. Just as we try to live a good life and to be kind to other people and to follow God's plan, we try to stay clean. Yes, Father, said Hosea, and after that day, he tried really hard to stay clean. But it wasn't easy. He still had to go collect the eggs, and there might be a little mud out there. And he still had to, feed the pigs, and as he walked through, might be a little bit more mud. And then maybe since he was already muddy, he would just, linger a little bit longer and play in the mud a little bit more. Anybody ever done anything like that? Yeah, his sisters who loved him were exasperated. And they took him home every time, and they cleaned him, and they washed his clothes, and they scrubbed him up. But they went back to Father. Father, please tell Hosea to stop playing in the mud. And Hosea was called by his father very sternly. Hosea, you must not play in the mud. Yes, Father, said Hosea. He was sad because, he truly tried not to get muddy most of the time anyway, right? Are you angry with me, Father? I'm disappointed in you, Hosea, and I'm a little angry with you. Hosea hung his head, and he kicked at the dirt with his toes, and then he dared to look up at his father, and he asked, do you still love me? Hosea, I will always love you, no matter what you do. Even if I get muddy again? Yes. Even if I get really, really muddy? Yes. Even if I get mud all the way up to my eyebrows and in between my fingers and my toes and in my hair? Even then, Hosea. But remember, Hosea, you must try to stay clean. I'll remember and I'll try, Hosea promised. And he did. He stayed clean most of the time, anyway. And as he grew up, he stopped liking mud. Not quite as much. But he still liked to ask questions about what and why and who and where. Father, Hosea asked when he was a teenager, how can it be that our church believes that God will let only 1 in 1,000 people into heaven, even if many of those 1,000 people lead good lives? His father didn't have an answer for that question. Father, Hosea asked, if I had the power to create a living creature, and I knew that that creature would have a miserable life, would suffer and die, and then go to hell and be miserable forever, and I went ahead and I created it anyway, would that be a good or a bad thing? And would I be good or would I be bad? His father didn't have an answer for that question either. Hosea had to find his own answers. So he read the Bible, a book with many stories about religious people and about God. He went to some Universalist churches and asked more questions there. And at the age of 19, Hosea decided that he believed in universal salvation, the idea that everyone, everywhere, in the universe will be given salvation. Eventually, everyone will be saved from hell. And not only did Hosea believe that God would let in more than 1 in 1,000 people, he believed God would eventually let everyone into heaven, good and bad. How can you believe that? Asked his father. How can you believe that God would let bad people into heaven? Because, Father, I remember what you told me when I was small. I believe that even if God is disappointed with people or a little angry with them, God will always love them and want them to be happy no matter what, and no matter what they do, and no matter how muddy they become. And with that, our story is told.
Please rise as you are willing and able for hymn 396. I know this rose will open.
Good morning. So we'll split down in the center. This will be our first group, and our first group, second group. And so you'll also follow me. If you see this symbol, that means just sing the rest of the tune and hold the final note. And that's how we'll end. Thank you.
What happens after we die? And what does it take to qualify for heaven? These are the questions that their answers can be found in the field of eschatology and in the television show The Good Place. Did anyone here watch The Good Place? For those who didn't, I highly recommend it. I'm not going to give away too many spoilers today. It was 4 seasons long, and it deals with different religious beliefs and philosophies, and I highly, highly recommend it. So eschatology is, as you heard in our reading, it is the branch of systematic theology dealing with end things. What happens at the end of your life? What happens at the end of all life, of all existence? And The Good Place was a television series that ran from 2016 through 2020. The main characters were Jason, Eleanor, Chidi, and Tahani, who had all died and gone to the afterlife. And then they had Michael and Janet, who I'm going to describe as being sort of cruise directors. How's that? Of the afterlife. And so the framework, even though over the series they wind up going into many different religious beliefs, the overall framework was heaven and hell. That there was a good place and there was a bad place. There was also a middle place, but there was only one person in it, because otherwise it wouldn't be mid. So for the purpose of this sermon, you can discount that part. And so with this show, they progressed into this idea of what is the good place, but very quickly they came to this big question of what does it take to qualify for the good place? What does it take to deserve to go to heaven? And they especially focused on this time period that we are living in now. What does it mean to be a good person, so good that you deserve to go to heaven? Because life is really complicated. We Unitarian Universalists like to talk about the interdependent web of existence of which we are just one part. And when you are looking up at a dark, starry sky, or you've hiked up a mountain and you're breathing that cool mountain air and looking out at all these other mountains around you, then that whole idea of the interconnected web of existence can feel very joyful and very awe-inspiring. But when we start thinking about the interconnected web of existence and our impact on other people, our impact on the world, in ways where we don't even have control, it can become very sobering. And the show deals with this. If what we focus on is not so much intent, but our impact. Are you a good person? Am I a good person? Let's say I run into someone who is hungry, and I have a banana, so I give them a banana. Well, that's a good thing, right? I have fed someone who is hungry. I am now connected to this person. But I am also connected to the person at H-E-B who filled up my grocery order. I am connected to the person who brought the boxes of bananas off of the truck and took them out into the front of the store. I'm connected to the person who drove the truck. I'm connected to the conductor of the train who brought all of the bananas to the depot, to the warehouse. I'm connected back to the person who captained the ship to bring them to these shores. I'm connected to the person who picked the banana. I'm connected to the farmer, let's be honest, more likely the mega corporation that planted the bananas and took care of watering the plants and fertilizing the plants, often with damaging chemicals. I am connected to all of that. And so when I gave that person, that hungry person, a banana, was I doing something good, or was I continuing the demand for a whole process that does not pay employees well, that uses chemicals that harm our environment, that destroys habitats and the rainforest? Interconnected web of existence ain't looking so great, right? And yet that is the reality we are living in. In the show, there's this great line where they are all in front of sort of a supreme judge, divine judge. And one of the characters, Eleanor, is talking about how difficult it is to do the right thing and be a good person. And she sums it all up by saying, and there is a chicken sandwich, and if you eat it, it means you hate hate gay people. And it's so delicious. What does it take to become a good person? What does it take to move into the good place? So, as you were hearing with the story of Hosea Ballou is one of the people considered to be a father of American Universalism. And Universalism, until the early 1900s, was really focused on the whole question of universal salvation. The idea that God is too good to damn people to eternal hell. Many of you have heard me say this before. Have you ever noticed that I always make sure to throw in that word eternal? Anyone ever noticed that? That's not an accident. It's a really important distinction because the Universalists were not of one mind about this. And in fact, there were many fights in the early 1800s among many of the leaders and lay people and all of that in Universalism because it was an organized denomination by the 1800s. And they split into two camps. You had the ultra-universalists, and Hosea Ballou was one of them. And the ultra-universalists believed that God was so good and life even then was so complicated, and the other ultra-universalists believed that once you die, you can no longer continue sinning, so everyone immediately upon death is reunited with God, is in heaven. Then you had the Reconstructionists, and they were kind of looking around and going, I don't know, like, there's some people here that ain't so great. Where does justice, I'm sure we can kind of think of some people, right now? Where does justice, like, how can it be God if God has no place for justice? And so these Reconstructionists believed that, yes, ultimately, all people would be reunited with God. It might take a little time. It might take about 1,000 years. This is why I say eternal hell. They were not against hell. They believed, in fact, that it could be a purifying fire, that there would be a period of time where souls in need of it would go through a rehabilitation. Hosea Ballou fought against that vociferously, and this story of the muddy children comes from one of the metaphors that he taught, where he said, if you have a child and your child is muddy, do you clean him in order to love him, or do you clean him because you love him? His view being that as soon as you died, you were cleaned. I think we often, when we think about the Unitarians and the Universalists, because these two denominations did not consolidate until 1961, I think often we think of the Universalists as being the more loving of the two. Don't you think that's kind of like one of our little stereotypes? And in some ways, yes. But if you're looking at this, what is called the Restorationist controversy, they were not just sarcastic. They could be downright vicious to each other. And in fact, in 1831, because there were often schisms that were coming off of this question, and again, they were all Universalists. It was just a matter of when. When does the going to heaven happen? In 1831, a new denomination was created, the Massachusetts Association of Universal Restorationists. Their manifesto declared the new group to be the true heirs of some of the other fathers of Universalism, Murray, Winchester, and Chauncey, and that, quote, modern sentiments of no future accountability connected with materialism are unfriendly to pure religion and subversive to the best interest of society. And yet there was something about this, the Restorationists and they more often went with that term, that by the end of the 1800s, most Universalists were restorationists. But little detail that is also kind of interesting, there was name calling, and the restorationists called the ultra-universalist the death and glory people, which many of us think is pretty rock and roll, but they absolutely meant it as an insult. Now, I know that many, if not most people in this room don't really believe in a heaven and hell afterlife, or perhaps an afterlife at all. But I think that it is a very useful exercise for us to think of it and just pretend for a little while and think through, which would you be? An ultra-universalist or a restorationist? The reason why I think it is useful is because our beliefs about things that we cannot know, like the hereafter, often shape how we view this life and how we view other people. And we know this, right? I know that I am not the only person who knows people who firmly believe in hell, who believe that hell is where gays and lesbians and transgender people and women ministers and feminists and non-Christians or not their kinds of Christians and Unitarian, Universalist, and atheists, all these people are going to hell. And so if that is what God believes, that all of these people are worthy of eternal torture, then of course, why should they treat any of us with any kindness? If it's good for God, then it's good for them. And this justifies much of their hateful rhetoric and actions. And so I think that if we do the opposite, if we come to a conclusion, even if it is merely an intellectual, imaginative exercise, that somehow, that there is a force of love in the universe, that there is something somehow good in all people, even if it takes getting to the other side of this life to come out, I think that that can change how we view each other and how we treat each other. The big question in all of this is grace. Grace in religious terms is the concept of unearned divine love. And for the Universalist, the unearned love did not mean that you didn't earn it. It did not mean that you did not deserve it. They were rejecting that idea that people are born bad. It was simply that it had no part of the equation. It was not anything to be, in the end, considered. That divine love simply was, and by existing, it was something for all people. And this is something that I think of today. I don't know about you, but I feel like the world is constantly telling me to have an opinion about everything, about everyone, to have a critical opinion. I'm tired, y'all. I have opinions about a lot of things, but I don't feel that I need to have an opinion about the royal family, right? Or what pop singer said what to whom. And it seems like what we need in this world is more grace, human grace. If we take it down to the idea of a grace that we all can extend, it is simply unearned good stuff, right? Where we don't have to think about, does this person deserve this? So Universalist Gordon McKeeman, he died just a few years ago. When he was asked about what Universalism was, he said, it's the belief that we're all going to end up together in heaven, so we might as well learn to get along with each other right now. And that's something that I can put my energy around. And I like this idea. I know I'm going to fail at it time and time again. But I like this idea of simply extending grace to other people and not having to stop and be judge and jury about whether they deserve it. And I suspect this. I suspect that the more we put that grace, that good stuff out into the world, the bigger the chance we have of making this the good place. I invite you to join me in a time of reflection in word and in silence. This is a classic poem by Emily Dickinson. If you feel comfortable doing so, you may want to close your eyes so you can go deeper inward. My life closed twice before its close. It yet remains to see if immortality unveil a third event to me. So huge, so hopeless to conceive as these that twice befell. Parting is all we know of heaven and all we need of hell. And let's hold that for a moment in sacred stillness. Amen and blessed be. And will you please join me in singing? When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. This community is a chosen village where our lives are interconnected. Part of the tapestry of this communal journey is sharing the significant milestones, joys, and sorrows in our lives, and witnessing the diversity that we hold. One of us may be celebrating a life event, while another is mourning a grief. And there's a beauty in that mosaic, as we are reminded that these moments of life, good and bad, are transient and ever-changing. And today, Alex shares, my close friend is dealing with some mental health struggles, but he has support. They have support and are hopefully going to be fully doing better. Mike Schultz shares the sorrow that his father passed away this week. Dan Scott shares a joy leaving tomorrow for London, then Cairo, back on the 23rd. And Renee shares, so grateful that my husband's surgery was successful and recovery is going well. May this community draw closer with our shared experiences as we celebrate life's triumphs and navigate its trials together. May we be filled with loving kindness. May out that it was so hard to be good enough for heaven that it had been 521 years since anyone had actually made it to the good place. Hopefully for us, it can be a little shorter, whatever that good place is. I will tell you, you have 1 week to prepare, not for death, but for something that can feel like it. Daylight savings time. This next Sunday, that's when we lose an hour, but we want to make it a little bit easier to get here. So Chris is coordinating a pancake breakfast. So you got a week, like start easing into it. On the good place, Michael says this: what matters isn't if people are good or bad. What matters is if they're trying to be better today than they were yesterday. You asked me where my hope comes from. That's my answer. I suppose that for me, I think that we all, even Unitarian Universalists, we have to take certain things on faith. And this is something I am trying to commit myself to believing even on the days when I don't believe it, so that I may extend grace. Go in peace and know you are loved.
I would like to extend our invitation to the Faith Development Hour today. Our Faith Development Hour runs from 11:15 to 12:15. Sometimes it goes a little longer, just saying. Okay, so the nursery is open today until 12:30. Unless you're at starting point and you've made arrangements, we will have childcare for your kiddos. The kids are in room 201. So kids means 2nd grade through 5th. And you go up the stairs and you turn right, and it's the last door on the left. And we were going to be watching a short today. It's really awesome. Forky has a question, and we're going to be talking about pluralism and how so many people have so many ideas, and maybe universally they're all right. I don't know. We're going to find out. The teens are in room 209, working with hot topics and painting on our mural. When we get it done, we'll have an open house. It'll be really cool. Yeah, Apollo, there you go. For our little ones, the nursery is open, and we have pre-K. You'll take them to room 109. The adults, if you are enrolled in Starting Point, today is session 3. We will start sharply at 11:15. We end approximately at 1:15. And for everybody else, we have table discussions in the fellowship hall where we provide you questions for you to sit down with folks you don't know well yet and ask yourselves questions based on the service today. The questions are provided. And today, one of the questions you might really want to delve into with your table mates is, are you an ultra Universalist? Are you a Reconstructionist? It'll be interesting to see where you fall. Anyway, we invite you and to take part and have fun. And there's cake, because there's cake. There's cake, people. All right, there's cake because we are dedicating the 8th principal plaque that our diversity, equity, and inclusion group has so graciously provided for us. And where would you like them to gather to see this? Fellowship Hall, and then you'll get to see everything. It's really awesome. So as soon as you have some cake, come to Starting Point, have a seat at a table, have a conversation. Thank you.
Please join me in extinguishing our chalice with these words by Unitarian Universalist Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there's another truth. You are not alone. Let us leave this service with renewal in our spirit and a song in our heart. Please rise for number 126, Come, Thou Fount of Every Blessing. It has been a gift to be together today. Please spend the next 5 minutes talking with someone you don't know. Show them where the visitor's table is and where the coffee's located. And may we all know the blessings of friendship. Thank you.